Hi everyone, and welcome back to Build Your Future, where we cover all things property development and investing. Now, are you looking to grow your pipeline this year? Growing your pipeline is one of the most important things you can do in your development business, if not the most important thing you can do. By creating opportunities go into deals, deals become developments, and developments become pound notes. By having an abundance of opportunities within the top of your funnel, within the top of your pipeline, the more opportunities and deals are going to come downstream from that. I've seen too many construction companies take on deals that they simply shouldn't just to keep their team busy. Essentially, one deal's fallen out of bed and now they're struggling to keep their staff, their team busy. So they'll take on something that they probably shouldn't have just to keep that team in work. If you're doing something like this, you're going to already be struggling and you're already fighting against something that you know you shouldn't have taken on in the first place. So by creating an abundance of opportunities, it allows you to then handpick the very best deals that suits you, your team, and your business. So stick with me and I'll show you how. So the first thing we're going to be touching upon is the 5-year housing land supply. So what is it and what does it mean? So essentially it's the government policy that comes from the NPPF, the National Planning Policy Framework. And essentially it allows the government bodies to hold each council to account. So each local authority will give in a certain agenda in terms of the amount of units that they need to be delivering over a 5-year period. So if a local authority's housing target was 5,000, for instance, you'd do 5,000 homes divided by 5 years, which would give you a target of 1,000 houses per year. You can then look to extrapolate this data and look back to see whether the council are hitting those requirements. Are they only delivering 700 units per year? Have they delivered 1,200 units per year? And then this will give you a bit of a guide whether they are behind schedule or if they're oversupplied. Now, one of the key things about building a development pipeline is if a council are ahead of their 5-year housing land supply, let's say they're able to prove that actually they're allocated to build 8,000 units over the 5 years, they're able to showcase that they have land to build 10,000, and that way you can think in your head that that market is going to be far more competitive because they're far more ahead on their 5-year housing land supply. Well, if an area was allocated 5 units, as we used as an example earlier, by looking to previous years, they've only actually developed 3,000 units. Well, actually, they're well behind on their 5-year housing land supply, and therefore they're desperate for more houses within that area. Now, if a council or a local authority are more desperate for housing, it really strengthens your argument if you're to go in for planning because you're able to demonstrate the clear need for housing and the clear lack of them hitting their previous targets. Now, many developers are known for doing this in the past. You've got the large land promoters as well, who will have land and they will sit on the allocation until the council has started to fall behind on the 5-year land supply, and then they're able to aggressively push these sorts of sites through. So that is a great way of using a 5-year housing land supply. Now let me take a live example to demonstrate this a little bit further. So let's now use a live example to give you guys some more context. So if I just click over here, this takes us to the 5-year housing land supply for Milton Keynes. We can see I just typed it in here. So if I just click across, this then takes us to this document here. So this is what Milton Keynes Council have produced. We can see when they produced it, so October 2024. And we can see obviously by the title, Assessment of 5-year housing land supply. So if we just scroll down, we can then get the context. So one of the great things about this sort of information is it's all within the public domain, and what the council have to do is they have to obviously justify their position. So to justify their position, they have to write up long articles like this. We can see this one's 309 pages. Don't worry, I'm not going to tell you that you have to go away and read all this. But what I'm saying is the information is there. So if you want to learn more about these sorts of things, you can go in and you can start to read about their introduction, their methodology, how they came to the numbers that they came to, why, and then also why they're oversupplied or why they're undersupplied, because they have to justify absolutely everything that they do. Now, one of the things that, again, these land promoters do and large house builders is they'll look at the 5-year housing land supply and then they use that within their favour. Are they over? Are they under? And if they're under, they can obviously be more aggressive by trying to push their site through. While if they're over, it's going to be harder to get planning permission on that site because the council can then already demonstrate that they're meeting the housing need within that area, and therefore they don't need this other developer's planning scheme because they're already able to showcase that they're delivering that amount of units. So here we have the introduction, as we've just gone through, the requirements. So again, justifying why they need the X amount of numbers that they need. You then have the housing supply, the methodology, the housing trajectory, so where they plan to be in the next few years. Are they going to be hitting those sorts of timescales, or are they going to be behind? But the one thing that for us quickly we want to be focusing on is the 5-year land supply position right here, right now. So page 14, if I just quickly scroll down to here, here we can start to figure out whether they're ahead or they're behind. So here, MPPF, housing land supply, so that's 4 years. We want to be focusing on the 5 years. And we can see, so housing delivery, so they've said that they need to deliver 1,728 units per year. So 1,728 times 5 gives you a total figure of 8,640, which we can find here. So looking at what they're delivering, so focusing on the 5-year housing land supply, this table here, we can see 1,728 times 5, 8,640, and then we can see how many they, from what they found, what they think they can deliver. So overall supply of deliverable sites, they're saying that they think that they can deliver 10,101 homes. So 10,101, they're saying that they're oversupplied essentially by 1,461 homes, which is an oversupply of 5.85 years. So within this document, Milton Keynes are essentially coming back and saying, we're fine, we're hitting our housing target. If not, we're actually ahead of our housing target. We believe we can deliver 5.85 units opposed to 3.6 units, 3.6 years, for example. So it's really good to kind of start to read this sort of information, because it just gives you a bit of a guide as to where councils are. Are they really ahead? Are they proactive in terms of their developments, or are they really behind? And therefore you can try and use these different strategies to try and get sites through the planning system. So it's just about understanding where the council is and then trying to find the right opportunities. Now, one of the good things is, say you live in a certain area and you want to be focusing on developments within a 40-mile radius. Well, by quickly doing this, you can figure out which local authorities are ahead and which local authorities are behind, and then perhaps you can start to focus your energy and your efforts on the areas that are already behind. As you know, that they're desperate for housing, and so there's going to be more opportunities there, opposed to sites that are, let's say, 7 years ahead of their 5-year housing land supply. So that was just a quick example of how you can use local council documentation to assist you in understanding your area and what sort of opportunities. Are the council proactive, or are they very negative on the developments within that area? Another great thing about this document is if we just scroll down, we can see here that they actually provide a lot of the sites and information. So if I just zoom in, just to give you a quick example, we can just zoom across here, and here we can see if it's outlined or full permission. So some of these sites obviously might be too small for you, might be too big for you, but it just shows you here kind of 2 units, 45 units, 18 units, obviously 121 units. If we just zoom in again further, 139, 91, 31, 7, 6, 5. So again, this is a great document to kind of give you that sort of information. We can even scroll down further and they'll actually showcase the site. So if we just scroll down into their methodology section, again, they'll kind of give information as to each and every site and the information behind it. So again, if you're starting to want to understand kind of planning theory a little bit more, this is a good place to look. Now, if we just scroll down, So here they've even outlined each site, so you can see where they're looking for the development to take place, and then they also give you the address. So this is another great way to try and find opportunities, or also just understand what developments are going to be taking place, what sort of competition you're going to be looking at within that local area. Again, it's great for planning theory. If you have a site, or you're looking at a site and it's similar to this one, for instance, then you can kind of go, oh, or what have they done here? What have they delivered here? What sort of layout and design have they done? Can we look to do something similar? Can we look to improve it? So these sorts of things are a great tool when trying to find opportunities. So we've looked at the 5-year housing land supply, and we now have a good idea as to what areas are hitting their supply, what areas aren't hitting their supply. And so now we're going to be focusing our efforts on the areas that are behind their 5-year housing land supply, so we can try and find some good opportunities within that area. So I've just taken a quick live example of Corby. We can see it here. And now we can start to look at other ways of trying to find opportunities. Now we've had a bit of a guide and a bit of direction from the 5-year supply. We can now start to use Landstack's tools to unlock more opportunities. So here, again, we can look at the planning applications. So we can start to look at what's going on, what's taking place. Sites that are, again, as we've kind of discussed previously, sites that are rejected, we can look to see why they're rejected and see if we can try to unlock some of these opportunities. We can find sites that already have planning permission in place and reaching out to them, seeing if we can develop it out ourselves. We can also look at sites that are already in for planning, again saying once planning permission is achieved, could we look at purchasing a site from you? So that's how we can use the planning application. We can then look at allocations, so what sites are allocated within the local area and what are they allocated for. So we can see some allocations. So if a site is allocated, it essentially means that the council are using that allocation within their 5-year supply. So it means they essentially want that site to get delivered. So if a site is allocated, it's never a slam dunk, it's never truly that easy, but it means the council proactively want to see that site developed, and so are more likely to work with you on trying to get a site through that's already in an allocated position. We can also use things like the SHLA. So we have the SHLA, the HELA and the SHELA. It seems like everyone's got a different name for it, but again, it just starts to highlight different opportunities that might be of interest to us. So I'm assuming that these are going to be for commercial use, because here we can see that there's a lot of commercial space. So if we just click on it here, we can see, yep, long-term land reserve, employment use, and again, employment use here. But if we just zoom out and try and find some more residential focused opportunities, we can click, take some of these. So here we can see, so the site, it gives you the information around the site, local plan, so it's already within the draft allocation. And we can see here that it's a site of 0.98 hectares and it's allocated for mixed use development of 100 dwellings. So here we know that if we look at this site, the council are obviously proactively wanting to develop this site, and so you can start to try and work in partnership with them. Again, here we have 0.83 hectares, again another 100 dwelling scheme. So this is central town centre, so we can kind of figure out that obviously they'd probably want to see development taking place there for regeneration. Now, if all of that sounds like too much hard work, this brings us on to the channel sponsor, Landstack. So if we just click on to districts here, we can see that their information, their tool does a lot of the heavy lifting, a lot of the hard work for you. So we can see here on the right hand side, 5-year supply. If we click on this, it then starts to highlight each and every one. They've even color coded it. So red, obviously bad. So it means that they're only able to demonstrate 1 to 2 years. So if you're in these sorts of areas, you might want to focus your energy on some of the reds. Then you've got to do the 2 to 3. So again, there's opportunity there, 3 to 4. And then places that are blue, so the ones that are over the 5-year housing land supply are here in blue. So if we just start to zoom in, we can say, okay, these areas here are blue, 3 Rivers, red. This one, Aylesbury, they're only able to demonstrate the 3.22. However, this information was December 2021, so this might give you guys an opportunity to look onto the council information and see if there's anything on there to explain why they're behind and if there's any opportunities. Again, Wokingham, West Berkshire, these are the sorts of things that you want to be using when trying to find opportunities. As let's say you lived in South Northamptonshire, you're able to go, okay, well, very quickly we're able to say, well, within these districts, they're all on blue, they're all hitting their housing land supply. Here we've got Milton Keynes, again in blue, linking up with what we kind of found earlier that they're oversupplied. But actually, by zooming in, we can see, well, Northampton here, they're only 3.9. We've got Bedford just over here at 3.46. We've got Warwick on the other side, if we don't mind too much of a drive, at 2.34. So you can kind of go, okay, well, maybe I won't focus my efforts on South Northamptonshire. Maybe I'll cut across to Warwick. Maybe I'll have a look at kind of central Northampton or Bedfordshire to try and unlock opportunities. So it's another great way to focus your time, your energy on trying to find areas where most sites get the best deals. So by clicking on this, we can see that this site here is allocated. So we can see, if we just look here on the right hand side, that the site is 2.42 acres and it's allocated for 31 units. So if we were to contact these guys, this owner, we'd be pretty confident, because it has an allocation of 31 units, we'll be pretty confident in trying to get planning permission or putting together an appraisal for this site for that number of units. So it's such a great way to start to uncover opportunities. If you want to build a pipeline of 1,000 leads, 1,000 opportunities, doing things like going through the allocations, going through the brownfield register, going through the planning documentation, this is where you start to try and find these opportunities. You can then reach out to them through the planning portal system, or you can find out the owner and send them a letter, or speak to agents and contact them directly. There's so many different ways of doing this, which I love. But by trying to do this, by building up your pipeline, it's just going to serve you, and it's just going to allow you to find new opportunities within the future. So again, if we just zoom out a little bit more, and let's try and go a bit further afield. So let's see if there's anything on this settlement here. So again, if we just click off the allocation and go on to the SHLA, so we can see this site here. So it's in the call for sites and it's for 40 units. So again, it doesn't always have to be the main city centres that we've just kind of looked at. A lot of this information can be found on kind of other rural settlements as well. So this is just another great way of uncovering new opportunities. So again, here it gives us the reference number, it gives us the company, organisation. So if we wanted to contact these guys, the number of dwellings, it gives us absolutely everything that we need to start to uncover new opportunities. So these are the types of things that I'll be doing to unlock thousands of opportunities this year, to then try and turn some of these opportunities into deals, and then those deals into developments. Now, within this series, I'm be covering a whole host of other development opportunities, other strategies and things like this. So if there's anything that you want me to cover, just let me know in the comments below, like and subscribe, and I look forward to speaking to you guys on the next one. So there are some great examples of what I would do to build my pipeline this year. So what we've done is we've used the 5-year housing land supply to find local authorities that are currently in a weak position. These are local authorities that are behind on their 5-year housing land supply, and so we can start to uncover opportunities and deals within these areas, as we know that there is a huge need for development within these locations. We've then also used it as a guide on the other side to avoid places that are well oversupplied, as we know these places are going to be highly competitive, and the council are able to demonstrate that they simply don't need that amount of housing within that area. We've then used tools and systems such as LandStack to find new opportunities through the allocation system, through the planning system. We've also looked at the call for sites and also things such as the SHLA. So this is a great way to find opportunities that the council are proactively wanting to see developed, and it's down to you guys to speak to landowners, contact them directly, try and uncover these opportunities, and now try and turn these opportunities into deals. So as we said at the very beginning, creating opportunities and creating these sorts of systems is a great way to unlock new development opportunities. So hopefully this is a great way for you guys to get started in finding your next development site. Now within this, I'm covering a whole host of different strategies, deal makings, developments, land sourcing. So if there's anything that you guys want me to cover, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you soon.